After studying this module, you shall be able to know the basic idea of what the alternatives in qualitative analysis, explain in brief various alternatives, evaluate mixed methods in qualitative research. Analysis of qualitative data. There are two main parts in this module. Part 1, Alternatives in Qualitative Data Analysis. This section outlines various alternative approaches to analysis of qualitative data. It covers case-oriented understanding, ethnography, grounded theory, nethnography, ethnomethodology, narrative analysis, qualitative comparison analysis, and conversation analysis. Part 2, Mixed Methods. It deals with combining qualitative and quantitative methods. Part 3, Computer-Assisted Qualitative Analysis. This section explains the technological advancements and analysis of qualitative data. Part 1, Alternatives in Qualitative Data Analysis. Ethnography. Ethnography uses participant observation either partially or fully to study a specific community or society where the researcher is a part of the group being studied and records his or her observation based on the events in field notes. Hammersley 1992 emphasized on some general features of the ethnographic research approach. Society's behavior is observed in their natural setting and not under experimental settings. Data is collected with the help of diverse sources like observation and informal conversation, which are the crucial ones. Its focus is on a single setting or group. Analysis includes interpreting the meaning. Denson and Lincoln in 1998 also replicated the features. They noted ethnographic techniques involves collection of a small number of cases, relatively unstructured empirical materials, and involves description of phenomena and a writing style of analysis that are primarily interpretive. According to Armstrong in 2008, a good ethnographer is one who can learn about the delicacies of expressions used in a group and the multiple meanings that can be assigned to statements or acts. According to Maiden 2010, good ethnographers use self-reflection of their own background on the research plans and the impact of the research in the situation. Nethnography. With the advances of technology and development in social networking, online communities is a new emerging trend. They may emerge in individuals who have similar interests in environment in order to promote emerging social relationship which could not work out due to a particular setting or location, or to enhance relationships that are formed in work or other events. According to Kozinets in 2010, groups of individuals who communicate directly, online groups can form a culture and become sources of identification and attachment. And like physical societies, researchers can study online societies through involvement in the group for the extended period. Nethnography by James Busher in 2009 uses ethnographic procedures to analyze online societies. The researcher begins his or her research only after getting acquainted with the language and societal norms of the online societies, framing an exploratory research inquiry about social processes or attitudes that take place in a particular environment, choosing an accurate community to study. Nethnographies focus on communities whose members are physically restrained and scattered. According to Kozinets in 2010, the community selected must be suitable to answer the research question, should be able to engage with the active members, and should be able to generate a rich body of textual data. A nethnographer must make him or her friendly. Unlike a traditional ethnographer, a nethnographer has the access to the original data produced. They can then code, interpret, and compare the data with new data to keep up with the altering social patterns and develop a theory from it. Both observational and reflective field notes can be used for this. Ethnomethodology. Ethnomethodology is the study of construction of the social world of participants. Its focus is on how the reality is created rather than the description of the social world itself. They do not necessarily believe in finding the objective reality. The way participants produce and endure a reality are a phenomena of concern. According to Jaber F. Gubrium and James A. Holstein in 1997, in ethnomethodology, the focus shifts from the events of everyday life to the ways with which the world is experienced to be real, concrete, factual, and out there. An interest in members' methods of constituting their world replaces the naturalistic project of describing members' worlds as they know them. Holstein in 1997, construction of reality can be anything from gender to identity, whatever that is socially normed. This concern with the verbal interaction has led ethnomethodologists to chance focus to a formal tactic, conversation analysis. According to the Blackwell Encyclopedia of Sociology Online, conversation analysis (CA) is a technique for studying the structure and procedure of social interaction within individuals. Its focus is primarily on the verbal aspect of the non-verbal aspect of communication in its research design. These studies make use of audio or video recordings from naturally occurring interaction as their data. CA studies generate explanations of recurrent structures and practices of social interaction as their results. Some of these, such as turn-taking or sequence structure, are involved in every interaction, whereas others have to do with particular actions and are more specific. That is, asking questions or delivering and receiving news, assessments or complaints. They focus either on ordinary conversation with family members or acquaintances or on professional encounters where the participants achieve their task through interaction. CA explains the fundamental aspect of human sociability which exists in talk and studies the way in which specific social institutions elicit and function with the help of talk. Three premises guide conversation analysis in the words of Gubrium and Holstein in 2000. 1. Talk. A method of social contact is contextual in nature and forms with the help of contact and definite social context. 2. All these procedures are involved in social contact. 3. Talk can be examined in reference to the processes used in social interaction, as interaction are sequentially scheduled instead of in terms of social status or motives. Narrative analysis. For human science practitioners, narrative analysis consists of a group of approaches to diverse kinds of text, which have a storied form in common. Narratives are constructed in stories of experience and are preferred as a method of analysis by social movements, organization, scientists, ethical or racial groups, individual and other professionals. Such varied texts are called narrative because of the sequence and the consequence following which events are selected, organized, connected and evaluated as meaningful and relevant in research of a particular audience. Storytellers describe the world and experience in it, and they often create moral norms as to how the world should be. According to the Hinchman and Hinchman, 1997, narratives represent storied ways of knowing and communicating. One may attend more to the construction of stories than the narrative itself, and make use of documents and observation. Catherine Kohler-Reisman in 2008, narrative analyst, explained how the combined information gathered from interviews, field observation and documents was used to understand how a group identity was developed by members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Grounded theory. To quote Charms and Henwood in 2006 and 7, grounded theory, also known as GTM, encompasses a premise, inductive and relative method for carrying out analysis for the purpose of construction of theory. Data collection. Analysis proceeds together by informing and streamlining each other. Empirical checks are built into the analytic process by the grounded theory method, whereby it makes the researcher to review and examine the possible theoretical explanation for the empirical finding of their respective research. The process of revision, where both empirical data and the emerging analysis are reviewed, makes the data more focused and the analysis more theoretical. One of the most popular qualitative research methods, the grounded theory method, finds wide application across disciplines and subject areas. The grounded theory method makes use of 4 levels of coding and analysis as shown in the figure. Qualitative comparison analysis. Qualitative comparison analysis (QCA) is a method that analyzes data by listing all the variable combinations from data set and using logical reference to figure out which descriptive inference is supported by the data set. While selection of the variable combinations, care is taken to define each type of case by the unique combination of values alone. This process makes researchers aware of all case types that possibly exist and need to be investigated. This can be explained with the help of an example. Daniel Kress and David Snow in 2000 took an initiative by studying about homeless. Social movement organizations, SMOs, they asked a sequence of explicit questions regarding social movement effects and gathered qualitative data from nearly 15 SMOs in around 8 cities. They found out that these 8 cities were relatively accessible and also represented a range of social movements outcomes, as brought out by a content analysis of newspaper articles. Both the researchers made use of the snowball sampling technique that classifies the destitute SMOs along with their factions, contenders and bystanders of organization they socialized with. Data was also gathered from the agents of these organizations, which included churches, other active organizations, service providers, mayors, offices, police departments, the SMOs themselves and federal agencies by Snow and Kress 2000. Case-oriented understanding. Case-oriented understanding views an occurrence from the participant's perspective. The interpretive philosophy behind this method does not include the identification of causes of social phenomena, but provides a different explanation for the same. Constance Fisher and Frederick Wirtz in 2002, for instance, explained the effects of being criminally victimized. They began by detecting the common themes in crime victims' stories. They explained by describing what they meant by the procedure of living routinely prior to the crime. He or she feels that the defended against crime could never happen to him or her. As said, "Nah, you've got to be kidding," by Fisher and Wirtz in 2002. As said by Fisher and Wirtz in 2002, in a second stage being disrupted, the victim copes with the discovered crime and fears worse outcomes. You imagine the worst when it's happening. I just kept thinking about my babies upstairs. In a later stage, reintegrating, the victim begins to assimilate the violation by taking some protective action. But I clean out my purse now. Since then and I leave very little of that kind of stuff in there. This is followed by the victim's reflection on the effects produced by the crime, such as, "I don't think it has made me stronger, it has made me smarter." This was the way both the researchers attempted to explain the effects of crime on its victims by means of such analysis by responding to their experiences. Part 2, Mixed Methods. Combining qualitative data. 2 or more than 2 methods are often used in qualitative research. A particular research by Elif Kale Lostwali in 2007 regarding the encounters between the citizens and their state after the Izmit earthquake was enriched by the use of participant observation and intensive interviewing combination of qualitative methodologies. These observation and interviews brought out the distinction between a Depremzid, son of the earthquake, and a Magdur, sufferer, to quote Lostwali in 2007. This was a critical distinction among the Magdur was seen as deserving of government assistance, while a Depremzid was considered to be taking advantage of the situation for personal gain. The researcher also depended on both participant observation and interviews to develop an in-depth understanding. A prominent narrative that was told and retold in various versions all the time in the disaster area elaborated the contrast between Magdur, sufferer, that is the truly needed, and Depremzid's, son of the earthquake, on the other. The Magdur, sufferers, were the deserving recipients of the aid that was being distributed. However, they, 1, were in great pain and could not pursue what they needed, or 2, were proud and could not speak of their need, or 3, were humble, always grateful for the little they got and were certainly not after material gains, or 4, were characterized by a combination of the preceding. And because of these characteristics, they had not been receiving the rightful share of the aid and resources. In contrast, Depremzid's, son of the earthquake, were people who took advantage of the situation. By Lostwali in 2007. Moore et al. In 2004 in their research showed how information gathered from participant observation and focused groups with relief workers were interwoven. Regarding the social response to Hurricane Floyd, to quote Moore et al. In 2004, reports of heroic acts by rescuers, innumerable accounts of neighbors helping neighbors, and the comments of HWATF task force, participants suggest that residents, standard motorists, relief workers and rescuers worked and came together in remarkable ways during the relief and response phase of the disaster. An example from the data gathered from one of the focus groups, like people get along better. They can talk to each other. People who hadn't talked before, they talk now, a lot closer. That goes not only for the neighborhood, job-wise, organization-wise, and all that. Our union sent some stuff for some of the families that were flooded out. By Moore et al. In 2004. Combining qualitative and quantitative methods. Incorporating data from the qualitative interviews has the potential of enriching a research design that mainly employs quantitative measurement techniques. Qualitative methods come handy when one has to know about the value of standardized quantitative survey methods used and the case records obtained. Similarly, certain fixed responses can be made sense of by qualitative data. As said by Danford and Schott in 1982, it makes sense to use official records to study the treatment of juveniles accused of illegal acts because these records document the critical decision to arrest, to convict and to release. However, research based on the official records can only be as good as the records themselves. Unlike the controlled interviews, such official acts and decisions, however, are not reliable as there is little evidence as to whom they were recorded carefully without bias. A case on juvenile court records. The interview of officials who create records or observing them while they record information can strengthen or enrich the research based on official records. A participant observation study on what way probation officers screen cases in 2 New York juvenile court intake units shows the importance of such information by Nidelman in 1981. Nidelman in 1981 discovered that most investigators believed that they are computing the concepts with certified accounts which differed evidently from the meaning that probation officers attached to these records. It is assumed by researchers sending a juvenile case to court shows a more severe nature than retention of a case. But the officers frequently avoided court cases as they believed the courts are not so strict. They assumed that the probation officers examined juveniles in individual cases. The decision was frequently grounded on the existing social situation of juveniles, without actually knowing anything about him or her. The officers first decided as to how they will handle the juvenile case and went on to create an official record which was used to justify the decisions which was most troublesome by Nidelman in 1981. Part 3. Computer-assisted qualitative analysis. Analysis of qualitative data can be enhanced by using computer as well. According to Coffey and Atkinson in 1996, Richards and Richards in 1994, computer programs aimed specifically to analyze the qualitative data can facilitate the researcher in experimenting with several codes, testing hypotheses about relationships and construct diagrams of theories and writing research reports, thereby pacing up the process of analysis. Computer-assisted qualitative data analysis as compared to traditional ways of analyzing text like notes, documents or interview records follow the steps mentioned below. 1. Preparation, 2. Coding analysis and 3. Reporting. 3 popular programs, Hyper Research, QSR NVivo and Atlas.ti are used for the illustration of the above methods. Computer-assisted qualitative data analysis softwares may be utilized to assist research with transcription analysis, grounded theory method, content analysis, etc. It must have tools that are used for searching content, mapping, coding, linking, writing and annotation. Preparation of the text is done by directly entering or scanning the text in a word processor by directly feeding it in the NVivo's rich text editor, which creates a rich text file. The requirement to use Hyper Research is that the text must be saved as text file before transferring it into the analysis program. Care must be taken for the use of same, that the data must be stored in different files, where one interview with the subject is stored as one unique case. These programs also allow pictures and videos to be inserted into text. The coding of text involves the characterization of particular text segments. Each program permits the researcher to allot a code to a particular portion of the text. In NVivo, by dragging through the characters to select them, and in Hyper Research, clicking on the first and last words to select text is done. One can make up codes via a document and also assign codes to text portions that have been formally developed. For example, if in the coding stage a particular text, autocode, identifies a word or phrase that must always be assigned, the same code appears in Hyper Research and NVivo. Both softwares also let the researcher examine the coded text in content of its place in the original text document. However, coding cannot be considered a one-time only or one code only process in qualitative data analysis. Each of the three programs allows the researcher to be inductive and holistic in coding. The researcher can review codes as he or she goes along the analysis, assign multiple codes to text portions, and link his or her own comments to text portions. One can actively work with the coded text in order to change the coding assigned or create new refined categories. Attaching multimedia files in the research report or placing hyperlinks to other documents outside is also allowed. Interpretation of text takes into account the revision of cases or text segments that have been assigned similar codes and examination of relationship among these different codes. One may end up combining codes to larger concepts. To capture variation among cases, one may also specify additional codes, if any. Testing hypotheses about relationships among codes and developing more free-form models are easy. The researcher can also identify combination of codes that classify cases that are to be examined. Each program can bring out result which includes text to explain the cases, codes and relationship specified by the researcher. The program also allows one to make counts of code frequency, followed by importing these counts into a statistical program for quantitative analysis of the data. However, these different types of analysis and reports that can be developed with computerized qualitative analysis software do not bring down the need for a careful examination of the data quality which conclusions are based on. One must be cautious as using a computer program for qualitative data analysis may not be as easy and straightforward as one may think. Summary: this module explains various alternative methods of qualitative analysis. Ethnography uses participant observation either partially or fully to study a specific community or society. Netnography or virtual ethnography or cyber ethnography uses ethnographic approaches to study online communities. Ethno-methodology primarily focuses on the methods used by the participants to create the social world they reside in, how they create reality, instead of providing a description of the social world. Conversation analysis qualitatively analyzes the details and the sequential organization of a conversation. Narrative analysis, grounded theory, etc. are also a part of it. Mixed methods describe various qualitative and quantitative methods used together on a set of data. In realistic scenarios, boundaries cannot be drawn among the different approaches. Using quantitative measurement with qualitative interviews often enriches a research design. Due to advancement in technology, software and online tools are available for analysis of qualitative data. Programs designed for qualitative data make experimenting with diverse codes easier, speed up the analysis process, testing different hypotheses, preparation of research reports, also facilitate diagrams of emerging theories.